Eric Coffin. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, inauguration day here in the U.S. Congratulations, folks. I'm here with my friend who probably needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. Chris Taylor, CEO of Great Bear Resources. Great Bear trades in Canada under GBR. It trades on the QX in the U.S. under GTBAF. And it trades very well most of the time, as I'm sure you're aware. Great Bear's got a fabulous project outside of Red Lake. Dixie is clearly something special already. It just keeps getting more special all the time. You put out a pretty impressive set of high-grade holes, and I think set's maybe the important word here, because again, it seems to demonstrate the continuity of this panel of high-grade mineralization that sort of centers the LP system. I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of grab anything that isolates those a little bit. I mean, you did put out an incline section, but there's so many drill holes in that thing now. It looks like the tail end of a bubble bath. So, do you want to just make some general comments on what you put out today?
Yeah, no problem, Eric. I mean, basically, we have to batch numbers because we have so many results coming in over the next kind of month and a half period now. So this is the tail end of the drill holes from 2020, the last part of the year. So we drilled 112,000 meters last year, right? So not all of which is already issued. So we've got those holes, and of course we hit the ground running with 5 rigs this year. So that's generating core like crazy. So there's 3 to 5 drill holes completed per week as we go through the year. Now we're a few weeks into the year, right? So I would guess like we've issued now, I believe, I think 29 holes in January so far, if I remember the numbers right. And there's going to be another 50 or so by the end of February. So we've never in our history issued a series of, basically that many holes all at once. So that's probably probably about 80 holes for round numbers in a 2-month period. And I mean, that's a lot of drilling. So in order for people to absorb it, we kind of have to express it in a way that you can understand packages of data, right? So right. If you want, I can throw some slides up if you want to go that way. So
sure, your doodling is famous. I mean,
oh God.
We gotta get you one of those. We gotta get you one of those Afro wigs and an easel, so you can
Bob
Ross thing.
Bob Ross. I was like, what's his last name? It's Bob something. So our Bob Singh is presenting right now at Roundup, right? So
I think I'll never get an Afro on Bob. He just punched me if I tried to stick that on its head. So I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, I'm sure it looked good in it.
Well, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the graphic that we put out today. And like you said, it's starting to look like a very populated data set. And that's because it is. Like, I think if you're looking at this in total, we've got 229 or 227. I can't remember the number. But it's almost 230 holes released for the LP fault so far. And you're dealing with another 150 holes that we've drilled in the Dixie Limb and the hinge zone. So, say 370, 380 holes, which is informing this data set. I mean, that's a lot of drilling. It's more drilling than you would see on a typical small scale gold deposit. The difference is that this thing is just so much bigger. And just for reference, I don't know if anybody picked up on this, but each one of these squares is 1 kilometer on a side. So that's gives you an idea for size of the system. So we put out results from these sections. Hopefully you can see those. So one of the big questions that we've had on the LP is, well, great, you're hitting all this gold, but it's the only deposit that people know of with really good continuity of high grade is really the Hemlo comparison, right? It does look like this shear zone hosted high grade gold within the felsic volcanics, and it's really what we're seeing on this pattern in the LP fault as well. So we put out holes today that are spaced just regularly basically every 25 meters, So these, we just stuck holes across one of our high grade domains in this part of the system. And it shows you what you see in terms of numbers. So we're just working along there. Typical, you get little splays of, say 0.5 meter of 130, but then these great results, and this is consistent. So say a third of an ounce over 34 meters, basically right at surface. I think that starts at 50 meters down, so very, very shallow. And then within that, you'll see, we always break out the data so people can see how it's distributed within these things. So a couple meters of over 100 grams. So if you think about the system on the whole, one of the ways that I would describe it is, so let's draw a bell curve. So if you look at a normal distribution of assay data, in a vein type deposit, this is basically what you're going to get. You'll get mineralization and then nothing on either side of that distribution, because basically you just have mineralization inside the vein. That would be a normal Red Lake style system or whatever. On this one, you end up with something like this. You get a distribution of data that's something like that. So if you look at these assay results, you'll see the middle is it's generally consistently high grade. That could be 10 grams. It could be 200 grams. It could be 800 grams on the LP fault. And around that, you'll see you get a distribution of, increasing thicknesses of increasingly lower grade mineralization. And it's one of the things where people ask you, well, what's the cutoff going to be for mining on this? We don't yet know, because, you look at something like Canadian Malartic, they have a cutoff at 0.3 grams per ton roughly. But it depends on how much high grade mineralization you have in the system. So we don't yet know where that cutoff is going to land. We have a huge amount of mineralization between about 0.1 and 1 grams per ton. And we showed that in our Verify model recently. So somewhere based on the incredible high grade endowment that we're seeing, you'll have to figure out economically where that's going to be. And that's dictated by gold prices. That'll come out in our resource reports. But in the results that we saw today, what we're seeing is consistency, and it's every, kind of 25 meters. And if I look on the assay results table that we put out today, you can see that. So, you look at these section numbers, that one is 25 meters from this one. There's a 75 meter gap here. I think we have holes pending on that. Then you have 25 meters apart, 25 meters apart, 25 meters apart, and 25 meters apart. I don't think, based on the work that we've been doing, that we're going to have to drill that on any tighter spacing than that. I think that's actually excessively tight spacing. But in order for people to understand the consistency of the system across kilometers, like that's 4 to 5 kilometers of strike length, we need to show some of this really dense drilling, because people need to understand how that's going to integrate into the model, the geostatistics, and ultimately the resource.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think people need to, there's a couple of other companies that I follow, and I know you, in fact, have done this in the past, and maybe it's something you need to keep hitting people with, where, here's the Malartic footprint, here's the Hemlo footprint, here's the whatever footprint. I mean, there's any number of tier one deposits around the world you could pick.
Yeah.
Here's the LP zone, because, people kind of need to get their head around. They're so used to hearing this with Dixie, where it's like, yeah, it's 4.5 kilometers, and everybody just kind of shrugs. It's like, that's an enormous footprint for a resource. That's really, really, really large.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just drew Malartic on there roughly. I think it's about a 3.5 kilometer long open pit. Detour would be similar, although it's not one pit. Talked about Detour a great deal with Mike, because he used to run the company over there. And of course, Kirkland bought that one recently for a great deal of money. So, if you're looking at Malartic, Detour, they have these kind of systems. What they do not have is they do not have this. So not in any meaningful quantity. So that's what everybody's trying to get their brain around, is what do you do with a system that's this big, but also has this kind of high grade endowment? And the reason that we put out news releases like today is to show people that, yes, the high grade hangs together very, very nicely. And if you go into the Verify model that we put online, you can see these panels of high grade gold that we're drilling off. And people are not used to putting big and bulk tonnage and high grade into the same sentence. And it's taken a while for the market to figure that out, because it's so unusual.
Yeah. And so you got a whole bunch of stuff coming. I don't know whether you want to make any comments about where they are. I know you guys don't like foreshadowing too much, which I'm fine with, but just at a general level, shallow, deep, here or there, do you want to give us a couple of hints without being too specific about it?
Yeah, I think you could see, we started putting out our information in a different format this year, because effectively there's so many holes. I think in this section, when we built it, there's something like about 220 drill holes, or maybe on this section itself, it might be 212-ish drill holes. And there's additional drilling that's off. Maybe it's 211. Don't quote me directly. It's about that number. Even I get forgetful with this many holes. But when you're asking about where this is going to come, you're actually drilling off this entire panel.
Right.
So, there's going to be drilling on all sections along this strike length. And, what we're foreshadowing today, without foreshadowing, is just showing you as we do the drilling, you're going to have consistent mineralization, along this thing. And certain areas, like we started batching it off because you can see certain areas are going to be obviously of immediate economic interest when we start, the future economic studies. And other areas are going to be expanded into, as we expand those studies. So I think when you think about it, there's very little I can say definitively at this point, but I've worked in a couple of big open pit mines. And when you have these kind of distributions that are a lot of mineralization close to surface, they tend to be very low cost and very rapid returns when you get very nice concentrations of mineralization that close to the surface, right? So I think looking at this data, given that that's surface, you can see that we're very optimistic about what this thing's going to come out with when we start in the future talking about economics.
Yeah, I mean, zones like that are going to really goose the NPV because you pull a lot of ounces in the first 2 or 3 years of the mine life. So,
well, the other thing is, like, we're in discussions recently with some like engineering firms because like we're going to need external opinions on this. So, this area, we used to call it the gap area. So I'll just draw that on there. You can see that on the grade distribution, there's a lot of sub-gram material. Well, the grade distribution there on that is very similar to something like Malarctic or Detour, one of these big deposits. And, if you look at those, the majority of the mineralization in those things is actually sub-gram, and they make it work by adding higher grade material. So on the worst part of what we're looking at on the LP fault system, we're very similar to what you get at those other deposits, but the rest of it is substantially better in terms of that high grade endowment. So anyway, looking very good.
And I think, I'm personally not worried about it. I think I think part of the recent pullback in price was that nothing had nothing to do with Great Bear itself anyway. It was simply a sentiment shift. I mean, you could see that across the entire gold sector, that the sentiment was just kind of for shit there for about a month. I think it's starting to turn now. But do you have any comments on the concept that Great Bear is maybe a little bit a victim of the Lassonde curve, which on the face of it makes no sense because you don't actually even have a resource out. I mean, everyone knows you're going to have a resource, obviously, but you don't actually have one out yet. And based on where a company theoretically would be in terms of development to be in the boring part of the Lassonde curve, you're not actually there yet by any means. But I kind of get that feel where people are sort of sticking you 2 years farther ahead into the Lassonde curve, which I guess is a compliment at one level, but it's not helping the sentiment because guys are just sort of going, oh, it's in the boring part now.
Well, this is kind of funny because if we were fully priced according to the Lassonde curve, we'd have to have things drilled off. We'd have to have the resource reports out. We're still many months away from that happening. And I think it's a function of what we have versus what's normal. So what's normal? Like, there are companies right now in the space, and we're not going to talk about any names, but if you think about what they're drilling off, it's very normal in terms of high-grade gold deposits. And if you look at the section that I have in front of you right now, the gap between some of these holes is like 200 meters, right, on scale. So there's companies out there right now doing drilling where the entire target of what they're trying to put together would fit between a couple of our drill sections. So say you go for like, these are 1 kilometer scale bars. So say you do a 200-meter gap, like on that section there. They're trying to build up a continuous panel of mineralization that big. With 210 or plus drill holes, we know this is a continuous panel of gold mineralization that's it's more than an order of magnitude larger. But these companies that are trying to do this, maybe they have a 300-meter strike length zone. They have market caps which are about equal to GBR.
Right.
Now, the market's used to that because you could take 100 drill holes and pepper a small little area like this and put out a resource number and generate your 1 million ounces, 2 million ounces, whatever, that's going to be. And that's what the market is built to assimilate. It's what the market is built to understand. The market is not built to understand the love child of a Red Lake gold mine and a Hemlo deposit and a Canadian Malarctic all existing together in this area and this project, like the LP fault, with satellite zones like the Dixie Limb and the Hinge Zone, which in their own rights would be significant gold zones that probably have, from what we're seeing in the data, I mean, you can see the cross sections you put out recently, those look like they have the potential to be something like some of our neighbors in Red Lake by themselves. And we're not even talking about the LP at that point. So the market is not built to understand what we've generated here. And I think that's going to take more work. And that's why we're nowhere near where that Lassonde curve would be priced in my view.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I'm getting that comment from a couple of people, and I was amused by it because they haven't even gotten to a resource estimate yet.
Yeah.
And this thing is clearly going to be very, very large, very, very large. We're going to say it's another great set of results, another great set of high-grade intervals, proving again that this core high-grade panel that you've got here at LP it's got great continuity, and again, it's easy to get lost given the scale that you have to work with because of the project. It's easy to get lost in how impressive this panel is already. It's by the standards of just about any other resource, it's really, really large already.
Well, it's yeah, that's why we started putting this up. Like, we've only got 41 holes so far into 1,000 meters. That's a kilometer of strike length on that panel, or 48 over 850 meters, or 38 here, 62 here. As of today, that's up to 70 holes or 69 holes, and then only 22 holes along here so far. But that rate of drilling has done this, this year. And that's why we're messaging like, there's going to be more than 50 additional holes by the end of February, roughly. And that means this year in total, there'll be about 80 holes that we've put out in the first 2 months of the year. So you can imagine as we populate this, it'll come from, people will get out of that factor, like, of they're trying to put, each one of these panels, in my mind, would justify a view of the company that would be as valuable as what we're currently being perceived as. It's just my opinion, but I think people are having a hard time grasping the total scope of the thing. And if we only had a 500-meter long gold zone, I think it would be easily digestible by the market because there would be more normal comparables. But taking the whole thing together, it's almost just
I guess you got the you have the curse of uniqueness a little bit. But there's worse problems to have.
Curse aside, I mean, we've grown substantially, and I believe that process will continue. It's not like the U.S. inauguration removes a single ounce of gold from the ground here. So anyway, that's how I see the process here unfolding. I think at some point this year, that story will actually be understood, and when we get to that point, it should be very interesting.
Yeah, I think we're going to see. I've made the comment in updates before that we're really just starting to see, institutional interest and institutional buying. A lot of these guys, people forget that funds aren't really set up to trade the market. They're set up to buy tranches and placements. That's what they do. And I have no doubt whatsoever that you're getting 20 phone calls a day from guys trying to push that point. And I know that you're resisting it, but I think people just need to kind of relax a little bit. At the end of the day, it's frustrating, but the stock's 25% or something off its high. It's not like we're talking mining stocks here, folks. That kind of a swing really isn't that big a deal, and I think it's going to swing back. It's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of some of the people that I know are hounding you, accepting the fact that the only way they're going to see a tranche is to help get it to a price where you're willing to give them a tranche.
Well, I can't comment on any of that, Eric.
Yeah,
I
I
really
know.
can't, so, but I will say, like, if you had a choice and you were building a company, I mean, Great Bear has been a long process, like 10 years for me, building it up here. Bob's been involved now for 6 years as of this year, and we've been grinding away, grinding it higher, getting it more valuable. But if you had a choice, would you prefer to, there's two approaches you can take with a company. You can get everybody and their dog invested at, a low price, right? So you can really pile in all the famous names, and you can pile in the funds, and you can do all that when you're, say, $1 or $2, and you can run the stock to $4 or $5 and, kind of call it a day. Or you can start adding in those significant players once you're already close to $1 billion market cap, and then experience the growth at that point. So there are two very different philosophies on how to grow a company. And I think you can understand that the growth for us is making people understand that big full picture. That is not a full picture that is equivalent to a 1 or 2 million ounce company. I don't see how that would be possible. Like, if you look at analyst consensus that's looking at Great Bear right now, the reason that we have such high price projections is because these guys have done the homework on a section by section basis and kind of see how it's coming together. So I would rather, in my view, get everybody that brings it to that next level to come in at a higher value, not $1, $2, $3, 4 or 5, whatever it is. I would rather see that happen in a more fulsome way and at a higher price. And that's what should bring us. Like, the valuation that we're looking for is, if we're right, and I think we will be, but we have to show it with drilling, we have to show it with the data. But if this is a tier 1 discovery, there's only 17, 18 on the planet, arguably 20. So if we're in that group, the value of that is definitely more than what Great Bear is currently worth. And we're only just beginning to have people understand that concept. So anyway, we'll show it with the data. We've got lots of results coming. The proof is always in the pudding. So I can say whatever I like, but if the drill results keep coming back positive like they have been, I mean, that's the idea. That tier 1 level is what I think people are going to key in on. And that's a valuation point that doesn't compare to 150 meter long gold zones or other companies really in the peer group. It compares to something completely different.
Okay. Well said. I think that does it for today. Thanks for getting together with me. Great set of results. Great Bear Resources, GBR in Canada, GTBAF on the QX in the US. I think it's great timing right now. If you're somebody that's been sitting on the fence, the market's been nice enough to give you a really nice entry point here. And I don't think this thing slows down. I mean, they're just gonna give her for the next year, and this thing's just gonna keep getting bigger and looking better. Great story, great company, great management group. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks, Eric. It's great to talk to you, and we will talk soon. There's a lot coming down the pipe, so thanks. Talk again.
Okay.